let's say the
not
FDA
gummies.
did an inspection and there's product in commerce, and they found
Right.
a product with plastic pieces. What happened?
So they would probably urge you to do a recall the product, because it's not necessarily an imminent public health threat, but they would look to see, are there any adverse events, or could there be any adverse events? In other words, people swallowing this stuff and swallowing plastic and having it, get stuck in their throat or something like that. If the pieces are so large that it's basically self-limiting, in other words, the consumer opens up the bottle, sees a big chunk of plastic, isn't going to ingest it. It's self-limiting. They're going to pick it out. FDA would have less concern, but what you'll have on your hands is a series of complaints, okay? Because your consumer will be calling you guys saying, hey, I found this in my product. Multiple complaints would come in, and by GMP regulation, you have to log those complaints and investigate them.
Got it.
And
let's say the plastic piece was, half an inch to quarter inch to half an inch. So now it's in sort of the size of gummies. Is that more of a concern? Because it's not obvious, to your earlier point. Like if I open a package and I see, a 2-inch plastic piece, that's obvious. But let's say it's quarter inch to half an inch, and it's it's in the size of it's in the general size of gummies.
Yeah. That might concern the agency, and they might if it went into commerce, they might be getting adverse event reports. Is it child-resistant packaging? Is it in child-resistant caps?
Yeah, it is in child-resistant packaging. I was going to ask you that. It is in child-resistant packaging, although it doesn't need to be in child-resistant packaging because it doesn't have iron or acetaminophen.
Right. Okay, but that's helpful. So, I think in that case, it's not because under FSMA, Food Safety Modernization Act, FDA has automatic recall authority, mandatory recall authority, if it's a food safety issue. And this really doesn't fall under that with foreign matter. It's not a food safety issue. In other words, it's not going to cause foodborne illness and that sort of thing. But it could potentially be something of an issue if someone ingests it by accident.
Absolutely.
And so if it were in commerce and FDA either became aware of it or were consulted, some companies will do that out of an abundance of caution. They will notify the agency and say, hey, FDA, we just determined that there's foreign matter in our gummies, explaining everything you've explained in certain batches, and we want to let you know, we want your input as to what we should do. And the agency would typically say, well, you should recall it. And then companies will go and do that. In the case of a food safety issue, they can mandate the recall. But in this case, they probably cannot, but they would strongly recommend it. And most companies won't go against FDA's recommendation for a recall. They'll voluntarily recall. Okay.
Yeah, my concern with this is, so right now the facts are that it hasn't gone out in commerce, but I don't know that for a fact. My concern is just in case it's gone into, a few packages, and it's this quarter inch to half an inch. It's generally the size of gummies. So and one's potentially one's a kid's product, kid's multivitamin, and one's an adult. Both have CRC.
Yeah.
So I just want to understand, like, if it's in commerce, then from what you're saying, I just want to make sure I'm recapping from what you're saying. The FDA would strongly recommend the recall because it's not a foodborne illness hazard, but it could be a choking hazard or an ingestion hazard.
Yes. That's what I would say. Okay. And I would say, frankly, in this case where maybe you're not sure if something is shipped, I mean, you're going to have to look at your batch records and try to see, you track it, obviously, which batches are affected and which ones have gone out. And if you can put a stop ship on affected batches that hadn't gone